Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect.
Well, Mike, I would like to say we survived Derby, but neither one of us survived Derby since neither one of us went
We
by the.
survived. We survived by not being there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Although
That's the only
I am
reason.
glad to
There's
be
no
in
reason we're
January.
healthy and with everybody today.
I was gonna say because usually by this time I'm contemplating whether or not I have to go to the hospital. For maybe I got COVID, maybe I don't, maybe I just got pneumonia, maybe I don't. So that's usually how the post Derby wrap up show is.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a grind when you're there for sure. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk about the prize money first.
Are we gonna jump? We got a lot to talk about. I mean, a lot to talk about, Mike. We got Federer doing Federer things. Nobody wants to.
Josh things.
Josh doing Josh things, although it's funny because
Pia
I don't
doing
really.
Josh things.
There was a lot of fillers doing things out there at Derby. I'm expecting fillers to do more out in Birmingham actually as well. So,
We have no idea how much money they made.
well, we know 20,000 was for first because Federer had a real nice check. Oh no, 16,000 for first, right? Because
Federer got 20 for master of the table.
20 got master of the table. That's right. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about some one pocket and banks too. Your two favorite elements on there as well. Michelle says hello. Sorry we missed you this week. Sorry I missed you this week. It was I love Louisville, but I kind of got this like love-hate relationship with it, Mike. So I loved it being from home this time. I'll be honest, because I want to start off the show with that. By the way, big shout out and kudos to the stream. Usually this time of year where I'm knocking it and it's terrible quality and it's I can't believe they're charging this much and blah blah blah, and that's been the consistent theme with those guys. But I got to be honest with you, Mike. I bought the stream and I was thoroughly pleased with the quality of it. I love being able to watch all the matches. I didn't have any issues with anything dropping or anything like that. So big shout out to them for what they were able to accomplish out there.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Finally, the pool world's getting into it, man. All right, Mike, where do you want to start, Penosa? We got a lot of stuff to discuss after being gone for so long.
Well, I mean, it's one of the things I'd be interested to know, and neither one of us can tell because we weren't there, but how did the extra day work out? I mean, it was nice that they were able to have 3 finals on the last day and they were done, right?
Yeah, but Sunday.
Federer bailed out on, the semi.
Going there already, huh?
Because it was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I kind of had a feeling like, okay, you've got that extra day for the finals, but that still doesn't. I still haven't been told how it's going to get you done faster, other than you add an extra day for finals matches.
Right.
So, it's. I'd be curious to know what everybody's thoughts were. I'm sure that they were hoping not to have a 3 a.m. Match going on to see who's going to play in the finals at 10 a.m. or whatever it was.
Right.
But just curious as to how they, if everybody noticed any difference or not.
I mean, again, from not being there, I'm going to have this limited point of view, but obviously we've been there over the last few years and have been part of that grind. And it's always that like daunting day where you just know come Saturday morning, you're going to start early. And if you're playing well, or if you're a fan, you're going to be out there late into the morning the following day. And it's brutal. I mean, you'll start like at 9 a.m. and by 9 p.m., you're ready to take a break, but then that's when you really have the long haul like ahead of you. You know what I mean? Especially if you're, the guys like Jason who didn't show up, who I hope we get to talk about as well. Federer, Filler, obviously looking at the way that just following from home. And again, I watched a lot of pool. I was really enjoying checking things out from my computer, but it seemed like it flowed a lot better. Michelle kind of co-signs that in the chat there. She says it was great. From the tournament point of view, if you're favoring what the 9-ball is and you're pretty much making that your crown jewel of the event, it's like you still had great quality matches late into the night, and did you get the best effort from these guys? I don't think you did, Mike. So,
Yeah, right.
And it seemed like, just given the schedule for Sunday, that in reality you probably could have had guys going to bed by 12, 11 o'clock, and then say, hey, just be back in the morning and we'll start fresh and get some good night's sleep. And you know what I mean? Like let another, and then you would still have the schedule be just fine, because you would have only played an extra, what, 2 more matches in theory, 3 matches maybe.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure. They got the 3 finals. If they're trying to dial in like post times, you mess with that. But yeah, you could have taken like that last match or 2 and moved them to Sunday morning, I suppose. So you just never know. I mean, you move the one pocket to the final day. That's still such a wild card in terms of something that could be over in an hour, like this year with all the eight and outs, or it could be something that takes 3 hours, and there goes your schedule again. So I think I would always try to play, if I was them, play for getting done Saturday night and
Yep.
just keeping all the finals for Sunday. You just have to find a way to try to get Saturday night done a little bit sooner than 4 o'clock in the morning.
I would think that, listen, I like them holding serve and standing by what they planned for, right? So just championship Sunday, and there's a ring to it, you know what I mean? Especially just given the chaos that it usually is, and it's really like, it's rather flat come that Sunday morning, because you're so worn out, no one's there, and if you are there, you're worn out, the players are asleep at the table, so like this was a big difference. So I'll give them credit for holding to their schedule, but I guess it just seemed like that there might be a possibility for like a contingency plan, you know what I mean? And a plan B, just given what's the end product you want to have, as your last foot out there when you're ending the event, And so I think that, given the way the schedule worked out on Sunday, there was more than ample opportunity. I know it's Monday morning quarterback in this thing, but because everything was kind of like, bang, bang, bang. Federer made quick work of the first 2 matches for his championship banners. And so, but again, it's easy to kind of critique you from here on the back end. I will say though, that Federer Filler match caught quite a bit of slack though, Mike, online and otherwise.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I understand it from both sides. I understand it from Federer's side. It's like, listen, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah.
I got master of the table sewn up, and I'm in 2
Black
finals, and I'm in 2 finals already for 16 grand a piece. How much is this? How important is this match to me in the long? So I get that part of it. I also get the part of it from fans who paid for stuff to watch the marquee matchups at the end of the event. And you got the 2 best players in the world facing off in 9-ball, and kind of half-assed their way out of the match in the middle of the match. So I mean, I kind of get both sides of it, and that's why you want to try to come up with stuff that avoids that from having to be an issue, right? So, but and I'm not surprised that people went off on tilt on it, because that's what people do on social media, anyways.
Yeah.
I kind of get it. Luckily, the master of the table was not in a circumstance
like last year, you mean? Yeah.
Like
it's kind of ironic though, Mike, just given the way that last year went.
It was Federer this time. So yeah.
There was a lot of uproar last year, Mike, from not just Federer, but his camp, as far as what went down between Jason and Filler.
But I would say that if master of the table was still in jeopardy, or still up for grabs, I doubt that Federer would have bailed in the middle of the match.
No, there's no way he does. There's no way he does.
Not even if he's not one of the, if the master of the table is coming down to Shane and Josh or something like that, I don't think Federer bails in the middle of the match.
You mean out of respect for them, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, it would look pretty bad after the stink he made last year.
He would have still been just as self-serving as he was making that decision, And I'm not mad at him for it.
Yeah, then it would have been kind of like, based on last year, it would have been kind of contradictory, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, 100%. Yeah. I mean, okay. you can't just have that position, with Jason and Josh and not and not have that same position with Federer, you know, on the other hand. But
Yeah.
JJ asked what happened last year with Jason. So it was late. It was between Filler and Federer for match of the table, and it's probably like 1 a.m. somewhere around there, 2 a.m. And Jason, I want to say he was down maybe the same, Mike. It might have been like around 5-1-ish,
5-0,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Jay broke his cue down mid-match. And so then, of course, Filler goes on to win match of the table. Federer was playing on TV table at that point. I think he ended up losing that match. And there was a big piss about, oh, well, you know, he found out mid-match because his camp told him mid-match that Jason broke down, and everybody was kind of scoreboard watching, you know, to see what Filler would do. And so Jason's around 4:30. Well, I mean, I was there. I don't remember it being around 4:30, but I don't remember. But either way, I mean, it was kind of and there was a lot of piss about it online, Mike, you know, from
Yeah, well, that was,
fans,
you know,
players, and otherwise.
right. So we're just saying, you know, how close did we come to having that same type of thing this year with Federer in the middle? It's just speculation. Doesn't make any difference.
Right. Yeah.
He was sitting in the perfect spot to do what he did. Right. I mean, if you could ever rationalize doing what he did, it's that I've got match for the table sewn up, and I've got 2 finals matches already coming up tomorrow. I'm good. Okay, I get that. I need to sleep if I want to be able to try to win,
especially for how brutal tomorrow, Derby is.
I need to sleep. So, you know, no, I have no issues with it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't really have any problems with what happened. I mean, look, I posted online. I didn't think anybody was going to beat Josh, just given the way that he was breaking the balls, and then there was a lot of complaints about the way that Josh was racking the balls. There's a lot of opinions about Josh racking, and you know what a lot of people are saying that he was cheating the rack. He was gapping the balls to, you know, make that wing ball and control the one, and he was doing it beautifully, Mike. I mean, I haven't seen quality like that in a long time. And depending on which side of the coin you're on, it's either quality and it's beautiful to watch, or, you know, you're in uproar about the guy being a cheater, which has been, you know, vocalized quite a bit over the last 6 months or so with Josh.
How many of the guys that are saying that were standing there looking at his rack? I mean, I don't know. Well, I just don't. I don't.
Well, here's the thing that pisses me off, Mike, is that these guys will complain about it like passive aggressively, you know, like through friends of theirs or whatever. But like none of the bigger names that really will say things privately want to go out there and say it. Like nobody wants to vocalize it because for whatever reason, right? And that's the part that really gets underneath my skin, because it's like, if you want to call the guy out, call him out direct, you know? Like if you're and SVB doesn't give a shit, right? He was checking Josh's rack. He knew exactly what he was doing, you know, during that match. And so the way that, and I've heard people say, oh, well, it's a Matchroom WNT event, blah, blah, blah. There ought to be consistency. And I get it. But look, the Derby's always told us that we're not a professional tournament, right? We are Derby City. We are the Ironman. We're made for everybody, you know? So, I don't know that I would quite co-sign on the cheating part of it, just because everybody was aware of the rules going into it, and they all knew what they could and couldn't do. There's no way to police that many matches throughout. Josh just figured it out better than anyone, and it's ironic because he really hadn't played a whole bunch of tournaments in that format to begin with over the last 6 months, Mike.
Yeah, no, there's, I agree 100%.
Yeah. I saw Shane looking at the rack to start off Josh's match, and I thought, oh, here we go. You know, because I love that part of what you see from some of these tournaments, you know, because you'll get guys that are going to start to look and see. And if you saw from whenever Josh was playing Moritz, I mean, he was hitting the ball beautifully once he was down, right? He's making that wing ball. He's controlling that one by the bottom left, controlling the cue ball. It was unreal. And during the finals, when they had a referee rack, and he was making the wing ball, but surely wasn't controlling that one ball with the same consistency as he had. LJ Bryseth says, my rack template would not rack them tight. We use a triangle. Well, that's interesting, you know, and I'm not surprised because we've heard that from templates over the years and guys switching them out and otherwise. And, you know, Mr. Bryseth would know. I mean, So it's great the way that it went down, I guess, but because it's not for like a drama.
Did you see Raymond's comment? Man, how good do you have to play to beat that guy?
Ray would know. Ray would surely know. And
You gotta,
correct me if
well,
I'm
yeah,
wrong, Mike.
it's obvious you got to catch him on an off day. That's for sure.
He didn't look that pinpoint. I mean, he had just lost early in the day to Can Salim. Kudos to Cam for a great match. I checked out the tail end of it. And everybody was racking with that template. They knew what to expect. You know, I
Yeah.
I hate this notion that because it's Josh, that it's low hanging fruit to talk shit about him. You know what I mean? And it really is
But
with
it's
some of these
Josh.
guys.
If there's one person who doesn't have to cheat to run 8 racks, it's Josh. You know.
Well, but he was doing something different. You could obviously tell that. I mean,
Yeah.
he was doing it quickly, but he was doing something different. You know, but he just figured it out before anybody else did. But I guarantee you, had anybody else done it, had anybody else cracked that code, they would have just as well been doing that same thing. And there's like this culture with, you know, or what's the saying? Like there's no honor amongst thieves, you know, because
Right.
people have been gapping the balls for forever, right? You'll see that every time they're racking one pocket, trying to get that wing ball to not fly out. You'll see it in 10 ball for them to try to put the slightest gap behind the back 2 balls. You'll see it in 9 ball whenever they're manipulating the template. And like I mentioned online, Americans more than anyone play this format where you're racking with the template yourself, you
Yeah.
know? So like they ought to know more than anybody how to get it done. And you'll see that constantly whenever you're playing these regional events. You know, guys are there rubbing the balls and they're doing this number here. They're doing it for a reason, Mike.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting. While we were talking,
Uh-huh.
I messaged Shane.
You messaged Shane. Okay, what did Shane say?
Just asked him, you know, in your opinion, was Josh gapping the rack playing you? I know you were checking the rack out. Was he doing anything funny? He said, no, it was strictly the case of the old breakbacks.
Is that what he said?
Yep.
Well, then that kind of puts it to rest right there because he had front row seats to what
And they're
Josh
looking
was
at
doing.
the rack. So yeah,
He
he
did
said it was
rack
just,
one, and he did it, I want to say, at the end of the match as well. Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
could be something like that. But so
Yeah.
yeah, it was strictly a matter of him of you know, not having to break from the box, which I
Well,
think a
then,
lot of players didn't know going into it. At least Alex didn't know. And so you know, yeah, it's
well, that's an interesting point of view. If Shane said that to you, and I'm betting that he did, because that changes the whole perspective there, Mike. You know, because then
yeah.
that whole
I mean, you
conversation
know,
of
well,
Josh
no,
gapping
really,
the rack.
really, the guys who are watching on TV and commenting online definitely had a better look at it than Shane and know more about it than Shane. So I'm going to take their word for it.
You know, Mike, I love when Panozzo just gives this the hell with you sarcasm every now and then. Because every now and then you unbutton that second button and really let it rip, buddy. All we got to do is get you a cocktail, and we'll be in fifth gear in no time, my man.
I haven't had any cocktails today.
No, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, buddy. Might as well.
Yeah.
Look, that just further impresses me as to what Josh did during
Yeah.
that event because, given what Shane just said, listen, Josh is an absolute phenom, and we all know what Federer did during this tournament. We'll get to it here in just a minute. But the way that Josh was breaking those few matches that I saw in particular, the one with Shane, the end of Maritz's match, and then the match with Federer. I mean, I've yet to see it's been a long time since I've seen great quality pool like that. Because it was really just quick work of every and anyone. I think in between that, he beat Alex like 9-2 or something, or 9-1, something like that as well. So just an amazing tournament for him, Mike.
Yeah, no, he was right there. You know, didn't win. He was out. When was he out of Bigfoot?
He lost the first round, I think, to Pius, didn't he?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, he, you know, he's Josh. I mean, I was curious. I would be curious to know for some players who were there what the vibe was around him all week. Um, you know, uh, you know what other players they were hanging with him, doing whatever. I mean, he's usually kind of by himself, anyways. Or if Albin and Mario and those guys aren't there, he's usually kind of on his own.
Well, especially with Pia being there,
it puts him in prime shape for Team Europe, right?
I mean, he's
puts him in the lead for Team Europe.
I was checking Matchroom rankings to see where he was at in standings for the Mosconi Cup, and I've yet to see a congratulatory post from them, Mike. Surprisingly,
as far as updating the rankings, that doesn't surprise me, because I'd be surprised if they know what the prize money breakdown was.
Yeah.
At this point.
I don't know why that. I mean, listen, as forward as everything was online, like
yeah. I mean, they had to have it figured out by the end, right? I mean, they paid everybody out, so at that point,
everybody got a check, Mike.
I understand why they can't post it earlier, because of the way people finish. You could have 3 people tied for 3rd and then someone 8th. Because people go out at different times, because of the buyback is such a weird thing. It's not
okay,
elimination, so they can't, and so that affects the prize money. All of a sudden, you got 3 people divvying up 4th through 6th place, and so you've got to split that money up 3 ways. Things like that. That kind of that makes it impossible for them to tell everybody ahead of time. But you got to assume by the end of the tournament they know what they were paying everybody, because people are calling at their window looking for their money.
Maybe by next year, Mike. Maybe by next year we'll figure out what this year's payouts were.
Yeah.
So, it's. I guess if you're gonna have something to complain about, it's that. But that's because of the wackiness that is Derby City and the way that they run the format and the buyback and the buys and all these things. Players know what they're signing up for. In regards to Josh, again, I wasn't there, Mike, but just given the lack of Europeans there, I'd imagine he was a bit of kind of keeping to himself and with Pia, and because usually like he's hanging out with Jay and the other Europeans, like you mentioned, the Austrians and guys like that. And there was really like a lack of those players there. I mean, there was hardly any Filipinos there. Hardly any Europeans there. I was real surprised. I figured like maybe during the banks they wouldn't be there, but you figured because it being a Matchroom ranking event that like the Spaniards would have been there for sure. I mean, Fran won Derby City a couple of years ago, so I was a bit surprised, Mike, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm not sure where to go with that one, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because of the format, Mike, or maybe because it is the payouts, or, the grind that is Derby City, or the grind that was last year,
Well, the grind, I think the grind, they're doing so much more traveling even now than ever.
Right.
They're starting to develop more opportunities in other places where they don't have, where it's not the only thing that's available to them for the month of January. So I think all that kind of plays into it.
Michelle says Mario was there as a spectator. Now that's interesting, Mike, because Mario plays one pocket. Okay. Banks the ball. All right. And he would have been a threat to win the 9 ball. I'm surprised why maybe he was on the waiting list. I'm curious if maybe that was part of the issue. I'd be shocked if he just showed up just to hang out.
Yeah. It's really kind of interesting.
Maybe he was just there to play some cards there, there at Caesars. You know what I mean, Mike?
Yeah, right. I don't know what, he didn't post anything.
No.
For a week.
And Mario's a little nitty, so like he would have been traveling with somebody, like he would have been rooming with someone. So bit of a surprise there. Like I said, Mike, I didn't get to make it out there. Unfortunately, it was the first time in a few years that I didn't get to go, but I really didn't miss it a whole lot, Mike. Like once I made the decision was kind of looming for me, like hanging over my head. But once I decided not to go, I felt great, man. I felt great not being in Louisville. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
LJ says, is Derby getting moved to Nashville? I'm pretty sure I saw a video where Chad from Diamond put an end to that rumor that it was not. Because I had heard that too, like midweek, like it's going to move to Nashville. And I remember talking with Greg a few years ago. He mentioned that contract was for, I want to say, like 5 more years, and this was probably like 2 years ago, Mike, when I last spoke with Greg.
Yeah.
So when I started hearing those rumors, I was pretty surprised, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I don't. If Chad says no, then I'm sure it's no. I mean, Chad's a pretty straightforward guy. So,
I like that about Chad, Mike.
yeah, just you like to be able to get answers when you ask someone a question.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. He doesn't hold anything back. That's for sure. So I can certainly respect it. Bigfoot Mike to start off the event. Labutus came up with some really big wins.
Yeah.
Gerson came out playing pretty strong as well. Not the usual list of suspects that you would have expected there, Mike.
Well, no, I mean, we talked about it before before the Bigfoot started, how the back half of the field looked a little softer than usual than mostly, and the back half of the field won most of the first matches.
Yeah.
So, it's good to see some new faces in there. Good to see Pius go ahead and snap something like that off. I'm sure it'll help his confidence a lot going forward. We both like him a lot as a player and as a guy. So glad to see him, get rolling early.
Yeah. Picking up where he left off last year, Mike, I thought it was great that he, my last view of Derby City was him losing to Filler. And I think he beats Filler the first set, then loses the second set in pretty dramatic fashion there in the 9-ball that early Sunday. And so it's for him to come back and really be an underdog in every match, starting from the very beginning, taking down the names that he did. And that really is kind of Bigfoot because it does open itself up to it. I know, Shane's won a lot before, and Roberto and Jason and all these guys, but it really can make for some wacky matches because, it is a 10-foot table. They don't break 10-ball like that. There's no jump cues, right? So there's a number of different things that kind of make it a little bit unique in its own sense. And so, but it was great seeing the world get introduced to Gerson once again, because he played phenomenal. Pia certainly earned that banner. And that part of it I really like, Mike, because sure, the money's great and the confidence is great and all those things. But like, you want to see good guys get rewarded and really get some recognition. And, what better place than to be up there and along with the champs like Efren and Dennis and Bustamante and Pagulayan. And, you're going to have now your banner up there of your PS, and you can't help but be happy for the guy.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Happy as hell for him.
Yeah. What do you make about, we touched base on the fillers earlier, Mike, and what do you make about Pia doing so well in the tournament and Christina as well?
Good for them. They're in there mixing it up with the guys and playing, tough conditions and, the grind, and, they had to sit around like everybody else, wonder when their next match was going to be, things like that. So, they both have strong games. They can match up with a lot of guys. So I was glad to see them do real well. Even the matches they lost, they were in it against, good quality talent. So, good for them. Good for both of them.
Could not be more happy for those two young ladies, Mike. It's you go in there just to go cut your teeth, just to go in there and sharpen up, right? And you may say all the right things like, I'm in it to win it, and they are because they're competitors, but like the girls usually stay out for the most part of these big open events, right? Because they want to get their money in as good as anybody else, just like anybody else. And so for them to have not just compete, because that's one step, right? But to compete and then have success the way they did was awesome to watch. And I got to check out a few of their matches. And you're right, Mike. They played strong. I mean, not just for in that round. They played really good.
Now they're going off to their first event of the year. And, you wouldn't be surprised to see both of them in there really deep. They're tuned up now.
For sure. I mean, Christina, is coming off a world championship, so you kind of expect that from her. But Pia, besides that third place finish at the China Open, maybe like a year ago, we really haven't seen like a super strong finish. Maybe I'm mistaken. So for her to kind of be in that spot and to do so well, I'm hopeful for big things because she really is great to root for. Is Pia, and you kind of see her trending the right way. And even like you mentioned, the matches they lost, they didn't lose by much, and there was a small margin for error. And so I think Christina did pretty good against Mickey, which everyone knows how great Mickey's playing right now. it was just a number of quality wins like that that are just going to further boost your ability to go out there and compete where your mental game is at,
Right.
and just where your confidence is at, Mike.
Right. It's a huge thing. So yeah, give them both credit for going there and grinding through it, and they both got rewarded for it.
Michelle says WPBA had 4 great girls playing there. Very proud of them. Yeah, I know April played there. I think Angela Yannick was playing out there as well. So kudos to them for going out there and competing. I was going to go out there. If I was going to go to Derby, the way that it worked out, either I was going to fly or I was going to drive with my buddy James Hansham. And so James was telling me, come on, let's go. And he was finishing up working on his new extensions, which, by the way, I just dropped a couple of them there. But I just got some in. So if you guys need any, I know James is sold out, but I do have some available. So hit me up. But James went out there, and on his way back, he was going to stop by the WPBA event out there in Alabama. And that part of it, I was excited to go check out, Mike, because I've never been to a WPBA event.
Go to Indiana and stop through Alabama on his way back to Texas.
And yes, that was the plan. And you wonder why I said I'm good, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's really the way the Google Maps draws it up, but okay.
If you know James, you know that's like right up his alley. And I'll never forget, because I think it was my first Derby trip. I drove up there with James and Rocket, John DeMett. And so we go up there. I think we broke down Louisiana twice. It was freezing. It was freezing cold, rain, like just the ugliest weather you could imagine. And so when he hit me up this time, I was like, man, there's a few things I swore off in my life. One of them was alcohol, amongst other things. And I said, driving to Derby with James Hanshu would have been another one. I love James. He's one of my best, friends.
Alcohol.
Yeah, it's right up there with the booze. So anywhere else on earth, I probably would go with him, because he'll work his ass off for you and he'll give you the shirt off his back. But yeah, I really, I don't know about driving to Derby, but I did want to stop by Iron City. I was going to do a preview show with Chanel, and we're going to do a recap show next week. And so I'm looking forward to that and kind of following the tournament. And just like I mentioned before, cover more women's pool, Mike, because I feel like that's important. So we're going to do our part. Let's talk about the man who won the most banners at Derby, Mike. Let's talk about Fedor Gorst. Takes down Banks, takes down the one pocket, snaps off match to the table. Let's chat about Fedor for a little bit.
I mean, what's more to say? I mean, he had a great year last year. Wondering how he's going to do, when he goes in, to an event like this. And, I think, talking to him ahead of time, he actually said, I don't know how excited I am about Derby this year. I'm going to have a booth there. I'm going to be focusing a lot on that. And, the 9-ball is, it's not what I consider a top level WNT event. He sounded like he was kind of talking himself out of playing well, or giving himself the excuse before it started. But, it didn't surprise me that once he got in there and once he started grinding away, then it's like muscle memory, right? For your cue and for your brain, all of a sudden you're in the thick of it and you're just grinding away. And he played amazingly, the whole week. I mean, I don't know how early the earliest master of the table has been sewn up, but he had it by about the third round of 9-ball, I think. So, he put a great performance in. And you watched the one pocket final. That was stupid. He just running out from everywhere. So, he's looks like he hasn't missed a beat.
No, you really got to admire that level of grind that he has, Mike, and that pinpoint precision. Obviously, we all know how sharp the kid is, and how that translates to him, on the pool table with his execution is just to be marveled, Mike. The mental part of it is very, I don't say underestimated, but not given enough credit. And so for him to hold up in that regard, day after day, discipline after discipline is incredible. And on top of that, work in the booth, because a booth is a pain. Physically, it's exhausting. One thing that I remember about Fedor was that, he would play his match and then he'd dip out. And that's one of the benefits of having the home court there, right? But for him to hang around and do that as well is just incredible, Mike, because that's physically taxing. Derby is its own grind, when you're working for 12 plus hours a day, but then you're, playing all these different games you never play that much, right? We all know how much he's got this like love-hate relationship for one pocket, mostly hate. Never hardly plays banks. And so for him to have that success was incredible, Mike, and then, you were still there in the 9 ball as well, and so from someone who just like loves the sport, that part of it, I would have loved to see him. I mean, look, he was up against it with Josh, but like I would have loved it to be more competitive because I love seeing greatness, and we still saw greatness to some extent. But like, if Federer would have had that ability to, or if he would have taken down Josh and had a chance for going for 4 banners, that would have just really put the cherry on top, Mike.
Oh, would have.
That's the kind of guy that he is. It's the kind of player that he is.
Yeah, I think and that's another where you kind of wonder if he was fresher, if their match was at 10 o'clock at night and he hadn't already played 12 hours during the day, would he have taken a more serious shot at it, or was he did he go into the match thinking, if this doesn't go real well from the start, I'm getting the hell out of here? You know what I'm saying?
Look, Josh was on an 8-ball, I think up 5 or 6 to 1.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm good, and it was tough to be in that spot. So, I mean, he gave it as much as he could, but at the same time, like we mentioned earlier, I'm not going to hate the guy for going out there and saying, you know what, I got some big days tomorrow. I'm playing for a decent amount of cash tomorrow already. Match of the table. We all know how prestigious that is. He had that in the bag already. So again, I'm not going to be upset with them for that. I didn't know what to expect from Federer just because of, stretching himself so thin. And I mentioned that whenever we had our preview show, Mike. And so for him to, do what he did during the banks, congratulations to Tony for making it to another final. But I mean, he beat Tony with ease. He beat Shane with ease.
Right.
It was unbelievable to watch. And then I went back and I was looking on Wikipedia, Mike, and I started looking at the last few years and just doing like some stats and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I can't believe how much that guy has really dominated over the last few years, Mike.
Yeah.
Like you don't realize it like year for year. I mean, you can appreciate it, but then when you start looking at like what guys like Fran did, right? What Federer's doing at Derby, it's like, man, he's in a whole other league. I don't want to say all by himself, but he's at the top of those guys who are by themselves.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Amazing stuff from him.
What do you think about that break box, Mike? John Brown says Derby needs to change that WNT break box.
I mean, it depends on how seriously you take that 9-ball event. If you, I mean,
is Derby City a major, Mike? Can we have that conversation already?
We all know my stance on that, and I think all the players would agree with it and would corroborate that, even the guys who win it. So
I don't want to concede that debate, Mike, but I might have to after this year. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to. So, but as far as do they need to conform to the WNT? No, and Derby won't. I don't see them doing that. And, it's kind of, they're not as like stubborn about it as like Zugland with Turning Stone. But listen, this is the event. This is the event that they created long before the WNT started. I'm not changing the thing that I've done for 25 years, 26 years, to conform to the 100 guys that play in the WNT, 22 of whom are at my tournament in a field of 500. It's not that important to me as a promoter to change what I've done. And this is the event that I created. This is the one you're going to play in. If you don't want it to be a WNT ranking event, that's fine too. If you just want the break back because you don't like how easy the game is for these top players, then that's an argument we can have. But as a promoter, this is what this is what I like. This is what I'm going with. So I wouldn't want to see them change it.
I agree with you, Mike. And you mentioned like having these tournaments with their own character and their own persona. And so, for that side alone, I appreciate it. You know what I mean? And so, look, there's no way to have refs at every table for that many hours a day. And so racking for yourself is just going to be part of it. I don't want to see loser break. I don't want to see loser rack for you like Turning Stone. I don't want to see any of that stuff, you know. And so for them to kind of play it, it's just a little different, right? You're still playing with the template. You're still playing 9 on the spot. And so for Josh to kind of have that success, like we mentioned, and all the players, I mean, Federer there in the semifinal, Shane going deep in the 9 ball as well, Billy going deep. You know, these are guys who we've seen all. Yeah. I mean, the cream kind of rose to the top, Mike, you
It
know?
always does. It always
Yeah.
does. And so, I see Matt's comment, no pro events should allow break for. Well, that was pro events, until 5 years ago. That was all pro events forever. And the other side of it is, I still question how much of a quote pro 9 ball event you call this. I mean, no pro 9 ball event should have buybacks, or buys into the final match from the, it shouldn't, but this is the event they created. This is the way they wanted to make it for their reasons, which is, make people, want to play in it. That's how you get 500 players in. It's a crapshoot for everybody, whatever.
And there was like another 400 on the waiting list, Mike.
Yeah,
so what they were saying.
So, this is the way they should keep it. If it's their event and they want to keep it that way, they keep it that way. And if you don't want to call it a pro 9 ball event after that point, I think Chad and Greg are probably fine with that too.
What they would say. So, don't let the door hit you on the way out is what I feel like they would say, Mike.
Come or don't come. This is the event. This is the event we've done. Everybody loves it. We love it. The purists, it's not a purist event. Never has been.
No, I agree with you. And I mean, look, I've taken that position before where, having that argument and getting up on the soapbox and bitching about it. But, I've kind of turned the page, I feel like, a little bit, Mike, and, just take it for what it is and appreciate it for what it is.
You're growing up on it.
Man, I think it's just being a dad, suck it up, right? But no, I feel like let it be whatever it is, and that's okay. Look, rotation is tough because I hate seeing these cupcake runouts, and that's why I hate seeing, template 10 ball because of how it is, and they're controlling the 1 ball the same way. They're trying to figure out the break to keep it as simple as possible for themselves. One guy did it a little better than everybody else. I'm okay with it, because I can appreciate what he was able to figure out in the midst of, playing banks and fighting for match of the table and, playing 1 pocket and all this. And then he figured it out. You got a guy like Alex, who we thought, going into this break format, this was going to suit him very well. And finally he showed up for my money, he got there pretty deep and this is what I want to see. I want to see differences. I want to see guys who, can have the shot during these different types of events and it not be so par for the course like we've seen. Look, we're going to have plenty of tournaments where on 4-inch pockets and ref racking and all these things. You're going to have that, and so appreciate it for what it is what I would say. It wasn't that easy because not everybody was doing it, Now, Alex not knowing the rules and maybe some of the other guys didn't know, how wide the break box could be. Look, that's on you, Mike. You're a professional. You gotta know what you're signing up for before you sign up is what I would say.
Everybody should read the rules, Mike.
I mean, I know reading's tough, but but look, I mean, look.
So you should know that you can't wear ankle socks if you're a woman player.
Yeah, right. No kidding. There you go. Right. You can't lag late. Speaking of, but I mean, look, that's why for as terrible as that rack is from Predator, right? Like I kind of like using a triangle because I don't want to see template 10 ball, And so like if you were to say, hey, this event, we're going to use a triangle like the Expo had that triangle rack last year, like you're going to have these these tournaments with more character and them to be their own individual, especially here in the States. Maybe in Europe, it's easier to go and do it because there's not as many events. Yeah. But here in the States, like you're going to get these types of events where some are played on 4.5, some are with the triangle, some are with the template, and that's just part of it. And as much as I hate to concede and say that the old man was right, it's not really the most professional event on earth anyway, so just let it be what it is,
let it be.
And it was great, man. Like I said, I mean, from checking out from the house, from the computer, it was great to watch. Like I mentioned before, the live scoring was great. the ability to follow the tournament online was like never before. And so big congratulations to that team that put it on, and the streaming and all those things. I mean, look, I would have loved to see Josh and Federer on Sunday morning, but that's just, that's a whole other argument to be had. And I'm sure they'll look back, and they have enough discussions as it is. You can tell, with that team and them wanting to improve the event year after year. So, anyhow, Mike, what else do we got, buddy? What am I missing here?
I think who else impressed you at Derby?
Well,
nice. Alex get to the finals.
Alex,
great to see. Who else did you notice that you were watching?
Look, like I mentioned before, it wasn't like as deep as I would have loved. I wanted to see Vitaly do great things in that tournament because, we all know how he's been playing. It's his first Bigfoot, didn't do well. I don't recall him doing that great in the 9-ball either. Those would be more of his premier events. And so, for that part, I was a little bit deflated, I suppose. But look, Alex was a great story as well. I'm with you in that, like, I don't want to see a bye into the final, and then but it's just because I wanted to see Federer be the final, not Filler Alex be the final. Does that make sense? And that's what everybody would have been rooting for if you're not rooting for Alex in that store, But yeah, I mean, look, it was great. Like we mentioned before, when we first heard about the break box and all these things and this new format, you really put an emphasis and a value on the moving part of the game. And there's certain tournaments where you've seen that be more of a premium compared to others when you're playing on 4.5-inch pockets. And so to see Alex have some success and do really well at the Derby and have a chance for getting another banner. I mean, we all know how much you root for the guy, Mike,
Yeah.
And so that part was awesome to watch.
Right.
Rick says Hennessy being called for a break foul from a referee 30 feet away. I don't even know what foul they're talking about, Mike. I don't know.
He broke. He broke, started shooting, and the guy came over from like a mile away and said that the cue ball was over the line.
Really?
It was.
Oh, by the way, speaking of great 9-ball runs, I'm going to save my buddy Matt's name in there because Matt was going to give me a place to crash, and I was following the 9-ball. He plays every year, and he did really well. I think he finished like top 30th or something, and I was scoreboard watching him from afar, and that was like in the middle of sweating all the 9-ball from the front row like he always
Just
is.
Be glad he didn't come, Matt, because you wouldn't have finished as high.
You've ruined me too, Mike. I'm not that terrible. Just depends on the day. Michelle says Devin Poteet was a good story. Yeah, look, there was there are these strong. There's these good regional players that are Americans that we only get to see them a few times a year, but it's such a catch-22 for me, Mike, because it's like I don't want to just see you here. I want to see you go and play all these other events because I want to see really where you match up.
How high can you get?
What's the ceiling like for you?
Yeah.
Brandon Schuff, look, man, let me tell you, I watched that Brandon Schuff and Federer match, and when Brandon was warming up, he was sitting them real spicy on the TV table. And I don't remember the last time I saw Brandon play that deep in a tournament like Derby. But man, he gave Federer all that he could handle. He played really well, really strong event. He was hitting the ball just real crispy, man. I was real surprised. I can't wait to see more Brandon after seeing him play that one pocket match with Federer because he looked really sharp, Mike. That was one guy that the little bit that I did get to see, he really jumped out at the screen because he was executing at a real high level. I mean, Federer is going to be Federer, and he's going to run 8 balls from anywhere on earth, But Brandon played the game extremely well.
Yeah. So Rick Jones saying that I'm wrong on the Hennessy thing. I'm just going by what I thought I saw watching the replay on social media, but maybe someone can tell us what happened to Hennessy. Not that it matters a lot, but
yeah, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't. I don't even know it happened. Hennessy being in some drama is kind of like. Let me see him. I expect Hennessy and drama at a tournament.
Sounds like he was minding his own business. He could.
Let me tell you a funny quote, and I'm not going to mention names, but a real good friend of mine who I really value that relationship. Last year, as I'm going to Derby and I'm flying in, I'll never forget, and they're already there. And I said, "How's Derby?" And they said, "It smells like weed and regret." And I just found that the funniest thing ever, right? And I was just dying laughing.
Right.
Well,
that sounds like a t-shirt, man.
Look, yeah, Off the Rails is going to make that one for next year for Derby City. But that taste in your mouth of the weed and regret when you get at Derby at the casino is kind of like Hennessy being in drama. You just expect it. It's just a part of it. Oh, you're funny, babe. You just expect it, Mike. And so, again, it's it just always seems to follow that guy. And there's always like some playing the victim and, the world's out to get me and all these things. But I've seen it year after year, Mike. I didn't, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, but I've been there at Derby City before where they're putting him on the clock before the match even starts.
Let me make it more apparent that there was drama. He was playing Mika.
Another guy who doesn't have any, issues with finding drama either, Mike.
So we're both shocked that something happened during that match.
Look, just anytime Mika and Hennessy are going to play, just put them on the TV table. Put them on TV table because that's where they belong.
What I said, I thought it was a cue ball over the head string, but someone else said no. So who knows? Either way, I don't think it was a overly dramatic moment that affected.
No, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. Maglino was someone else who I watched, and he had a lot of success. I think he went pretty deep in the one pocket, did well in 9-ball. This is another one of these American players where I want to see more of him outside of Derby. He doesn't play out of Florida, too much, but when he does, he can jump off at the screen for you, Mike. I mean, he can beat some top level guys. It's just, he's not a full-time touring professional pro, but he's got the game. He's got the game for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think he handed Federer his only loss in the one pocket as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Well, Mike, I guess I'm glad Derby City's over. All in all, I say they did a pretty good job compared to last year.
Yeah, I think they had some at the end of last year. They had some major concerns. They had some major issues that they wanted to address. It sounds like they handled them pretty well. I mean, the streaming was quality. The digital pool, following it that way, was good. Both upgrades, and then adding that extra day for the finals made that last day, potentially really entertaining. I mean, the matches ended up being kind of one-sided, but still, they're going in the right direction. So they're, kudos to them for listening to people, seeing what the problems were, making the changes,
but then still being true to that charm that is Derby City at the same time.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, that part's not going to change.
Yeah,
they can always try to make it run smoother, but the game is the game.
Dwayne says 4.5-inch pockets is a joke. Look, let me tell you something about Derby and the pockets, okay? Because I was there when they had 4-inch pockets at Derby City, and you want to talk about brutal. It was brutal watching, not the elite players, but other players
have 500
play banks in one pocket on 4-inch pockets. It is not a good recipe for success.
500 guys play in one pocket. That's just, you schedule that term for a month and run over.
What do you make about Josh winning the 9-ball, Mike? You think he's going to be on the Mosconi Cup this year?
He's a leader in the clubhouse for Team Europe.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's a lot, who knows? I mean, there's so many, and we talked about this last time, on another day, we'll talk about WNT and Matchroom and what the hell is going on in 2025. Because there are so many more questions than
I'm free on Thursday, Mike. Are you free on Thursday? I can make time on Thursday.
I can be here on Thursday.
All right, we can talk about that on Thursday. We'll have another show on Thursday.
There's just so many more questions than answers right now, radio silent is, it's probably not a bad move if you don't have anything really definitive to say, but there's ways of sounding like you're saying something definitive, even if you're not. I mean, I just think that no communication hasn't been good So there's, like I said, there's just a lot of questions right now, and a lot of it goes to things like the points and what players are still on the points list and what aren't. I mean, they're all still on. I imagine he's going to get these points and he's going to be ranked a certain way because he hasn't, been told otherwise, regardless of not playing in Moscone. So,
I don't know, Mike. I mean, be real about it. If it would have been Federer or Shane winning, or a Fran or Jason or whatever, they would have been a social media post from Matchroom.
Yeah, no doubt.
10 minutes after it was over with, Mike.
But that's different than saying that he's not on our points list. Right?
But you don't think that's that passive aggressive way of kind of addressing it, though, Mike, with him? Because Josh is the problem child, so to speak, in their eyes.
Yeah, could be. But again, they haven't said much about anything lately. So, yeah.
Gabby says, holding you to the Thursday show, boys. We can talk about the calendar and Thursday on Thursday, I should say, Mike, because we've been teeing that up for a little bit. Double J says they were 4.25. Yeah, even at 4.25 that year, it was brutal to watch these guys play. I don't want to see, that tournament in particular. Look, I love the UK Open and it being, on 4-inch pockets. But that was like the elite of the elite players. I don't want to see that with, 500 and below players playing in that event. You want to say hi, babe?
Right.
What else I can ask you about, Mike? Jason. What do you make about Jason not being there, Mike?
I just don't think that he felt like he needed to be there. He's
already on the Moscone Cup already this year.
Right. And so he doesn't need to, if he was a big one pocket bank player, if he was a big threat in both of those, be different. But for him to go that and fade that whole week to play in the 9-ball tournament with buybacks and draws and buys and stuff like that, he probably just figured he didn't need it. And that I get it.
He commented on a post that I had on Windows Open. He mentioned that he wasn't feeling that well, but that he made mention that he was uninvited to the Bigfoot, for whatever that's worth. So, which
he got joshed into Bigfoot.
That's what he made it seem like, and that he wasn't going to be allowed to play. And I'm not. It's not a direct quote here, but this is more or less what he said. That he wasn't going to be allowed to play the 9-ball until it was because it was a WNT event, and they had to let him play. But when he got uninvited from Bigfoot, and I guess because him and his family not feeling well, then he decided not to play. But
whose decision would it be to uninvite him from the Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, you know what happened last year, Mike, when we talked about that earlier. You don't think that whole buddy system plays any kind of role into that tournament, Mike?
Well, to be uninvited means at one point he was invited.
I mean, yeah, 2 + 2 = 4, buddy. I mean, I get that.
So, if they were still dwelling on last year, he would have never gotten invited to start with.
Look, he's a staple of that event. Ed says Jason wasn't allowed to participate in the Bigfoot. Ed worked the event. There's a direct quote right there. So why wasn't he allowed to play? Because Jason has won that event before. Right. No disrespect to some of these other guys who played the event, okay? Yeah. Because there was some great stories there. But I could give you a long list of guys I'd rather see playing Bigfoot compared to some of the names that we ended up seeing from there. Yeah. Like just from a marquee name standpoint, that part of it, it was really underwhelming to start off the event. Now, again, it ended up being great, and there was some great stories in there and all that. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see Jason play in that event. One of my favorite matches from Bigfoot was him versus Bustamante Hill a couple of years ago. So Ed says Jason's forfeit last year cost him that open invite.
There you go.
So there it is, straight from the horse's mouth. So I don't want to say I'm surprised, Mike, because it's that under the table kind of politics that you'll get. But certainly, again, I would have loved to see Jason there, and I'm not surprised that he, decided not to partake after maybe being treated that way. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So anyhow, Mike, you got anything else on Derby City before we get out of here?
No, not this year.
Yeah. So again, I'm glad to be home. Glad you guys hung out with us. Sorry we didn't have more updates throughout the event, but yeah, I'm not going to complain any. I am going to be out in Vegas, Mike. I'm leaving in 3 weeks, and I'm going to be there for forever. It seems like I'm going to be in Vegas for a long, long
You're
time.
gonna be there for CSI all the way through the Opens.
I'm going to be there through CSI, and then we're going to be doing the U.S. Open Series 8-ball, 10-ball banks in one pocket there at Griff's with my man Collins. So we'll be out there for another 2 weeks for that event. I'll be out there for CSI, like I mentioned. And then I'm pretty sure that I'm going to try to make the trade show as well. So
Good.
fingers crossed. So that's the plan. The trade show is really underestimated because it's a lot of fun. You got to check out a lot of cool products, a lot of new products. It's all the biggest names in the industry under one roof. Like whether you're a pool room owner or a wholesaler or even a fan, I mean, it's just a cool experience, and it's really condensed. Like you're in a vacuum there, but just surrounded with everybody from the pool industry. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool event. Well, good. Glad to be out there for those. I'll be out there for CSI, and obviously I'll be out there for the expo too. So
Herbs and Rye.
I'm sure you'll find me there at some point.
Who's gonna who owes who dinner, Mike? I'm sure there's got to be a tally so far for who's up on dinner bets.
I don't know. At some point, you had to have owed me a dinner.
At some point, right? You would figure by now. Anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We will see you guys on Thursday afternoon. Appreciate Mike for making time with us. Appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us as well. Hit the like, hit the share button. We will see you guys in a couple of days.